pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for all that are gathered here. We appreciate the opportunity to stand for what we believe in, and we ask that you just guide this meeting and help it to go along and be fruitful tonight. All these things we pray in your name. Amen.
Thank you.
I'd like to welcome everyone here tonight, and I'd like to welcome the new ledger reporter coming on board tonight, Jill Richstone. Welcome, and we look forward to seeing you about twice a month here, I guess. Maybe more from time to time. It happens anyway. All right. Well, I will entertain a motion to consider the approval of the agenda. Oh, I hadn't even really tell you. Okay. We do need one typo there on item F, 8F, recommendation regarding award of parking studies as opposed to reward. Anyone else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
under council introduced item,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to be able to throw an item in there.
Now, you want to keep a copy?
Streetscapes,
Okay. All right. Anyone else? We have a motion to approve the agenda as amended there with a council introduced topic. Have a motion and have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Okay. Have your minutes from the April the 18th meeting for in your package there. Are there any changes or corrections that need to be made? Okay.
motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. I believe you're going to abstain since you were out. Okay. Mr. Cummings is abstaining, Susan. Okay, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. You have the fiscal year 2013 March financials in your package. Are there any questions or comments regarding those for informational purposes only? Okay. If not, we'll entertain our 10-minute public input period. We have one person, Mr. Andy Alexander, signed up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we've had discussions on this before, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up from time to time, so it's not going to go away. I talked to several people that are seniors at Bowling Park and at Heritage Park, and you know they have a wide range of things they talk about. One of them is the salaries of the mayor and the council members. And so I kind of get their opinion to see where they come from on this issue. And, you know, I know where I come from, but I want to hear what they say. And they always kind of come back and say, look what they're paying down at Woodstock. You know, Woodstock has a certain amount of population as we do, and they want to have something that's competitive. They feel that, you know, when it comes to salaries and benefits like that, it's a competitive environment we live in. Doesn't matter where you state government, local government, or private industry, or sports, or whatever it is. It's a competitive arena. So they're looking at our city manager and our city council in a salary compensation not competitive, and they feel it should be. So that's their opinion on it. I thought I'd share it with you and the others, and just not me talking, but that some other folk a little younger than I am have this opinion. So. But let me say that when looking at salaries and people what you get, it's normally not based on the economy of in your city or state. Take sports for for example. You know, it's a highly competitive process, and the competition one person makes, or the salary one person makes, it sort of goes throughout the industry, throughout the process of hiring and making salaries comparable with other folks. So it's highly competitive. So I feel that council members and mayors in this region, state, should be competitive. It's a competitive environment we live in, and that's what I think it should be. Now, if you go down to Woodstock and ask the president, mayor, and the council members, would they take the same salaries that you pay in Canton? I don't know. I didn't ask anyone, but I guess you would hear them say, no, I would not. So that would tell you something, that people like that are coming to serve the community and expect some kind of a salary compensation for it. And I think that's where they come from. I don't know what their opinion would be. Should I ask them? But I believe in my opinion, they would say no. But my thing is this. To me, it's always right to do the right thing. And I think we had one national leader that went to Memphis, Tennessee, talked about the garbage workers many years back, made a statement, and I quote, he said, it's always right to do the right thing. Now, I think in this situation, when it comes to compensation for the mayor and the city council members, it's always right to do the right thing. And to me, the right thing is vote for the increase. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Under old business, second reading and action on the general addendum to the Georgia Municipal Employees Benefit System Defined Benefit Retirement Plan Adoption Agreement. We've discussed this a time or two or three, and I think everyone has an idea what this is. It has to do with the new pension plan that we have implemented or implementing with this action. And once again, existing employees are not affected at all, but new employees will be affected with a slightly lower multiplier, I think, and also the fact that, there's also the defined contribution as well included in this. So, does anyone have any questions or discussion on that? Okay. That is the second reading on that, and I'm assuming that we would go ahead and act on that today.
Motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Action on the resolution to determine the city council position on discussing consolidating fire services with Cherokee County. Mr. Bearsport.
Thank you, Mayor. The reason for the resolution is to keep the council member from inviting the county to get involved in the city's business. It was said numerous times that the county was invited to come and discuss, and I do not recall council ever having that discussion where we said, let's invite the county. And therefore, I felt that we might just need a resolution that we can, some future date, so be it, invite the county to be involved. But right now, I think what we need to do is just try to take care of our own business here in the city. The resolution you do have in front of you. A couple of things I think it's important just kind of mention on the passing of this issue. I think you all realize the county's fire stations, P Ridge and 140 East, those are under the old volunteer, and property is not owned by the county. So the county is looking for land and we just happen to have some excellent land locations. One of the other issues that came up is about the car that flipped over. It was in the paper this week. A lady, a man, and a toddler were inside. They got the man out and the child out, and it was an interesting article, but I just want to point out that it was the Canton Fire Department personnel that removed the lady who had to go to the hospital. So we do have excellent fire department. One other point I'd like to make is, out of the 21 firefighters this city has on assignment to first shift, we have 3 paramedics, 15 EMTs, and 3 first responders. The 3 first responders have completed experience over 80 years. The city of Canton is licensed by the state of Georgia as a basic life support department. Thus, at no time will an engine respond without a minimum of an EMT on board. And it was bandied about numerous times in these past weeks in discussion about our lacking of medical attention to individuals that needed to be attended to. And I think it is the responsibility of this council to apologize to our fire department with the disrespect that we showed them by not stating those facts and position that we appreciate everything they do day in and day out. And I just want to make that as a statement. I would like to have this resolution see, it's a number on there, but resolution, City of Canton, to determine the City Council position on discussing consolidation fire service with Cherokee County. I'd like to make that a motion.
Would you mind reading that resolution, Mr. Batchel?
Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council, and there be no further discussion of consolidating fire services with Cherokee County unless a detailed proposal is received from Cherokee County showing the cost to the city taxpayers, the impact on senior exemptions, and whether any transfer of city assets is intended.
Okay. I believe that was in the form of a motion.
Yes, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Cummings?
According to the recently passed decorum ordinance, you can ask questions directly of another council member. And I have one of Mr. Beresford. If you would please clarify to whom you believe that this resolution applies to.
I believe it belongs to you, sir.
Beg your pardon?
I said, I believe it applies to you, sir.
You're the me
one-
only?
Wait a minute, one at a time now, one at a time.
So you've answered the question, it only applies to me?
You're the one who precipitated it.
Thank you, Mr. Beresford.
You're one.
3 points. We're all elected to serve the citizens of Canton, and one of our primary obligations to those citizens is to make decisions regarding their public safety, which includes fire services. We are charged with conducting a thorough analysis of all possible solutions to any issue or requirement that directly affects our citizens before making a decision. In order to complete a thorough analysis, discussion with all involved is a necessary requirement. Those voting yes to this resolution are telling the citizens of Canton that they are not interested in discussing probably the most viable option to expansion and improvement of fire services. I personally believe this resolution to be a violation of my sworn duty to Canton citizens, and even if passed, it will be meaningless to me. Point 2, being an elected official, neither this council nor any legislative body can tell me who I can discuss anything with. I can discuss any issue with whomever, whenever, wherever I choose to do so, and I will do that. Number 3, a resolution is low on the totem pole. It is superseded by an ordinance, which is superseded by the city charter and so forth, all the way to the U.S. Constitution. Even if this resolution passes, it is invalid because it attempts to take precedence over the city charter, namely paragraph 2.20 rules of procedure. The mayor has formed, and that's the formation of a committee, the mayor has formed a fire services committee, which I chair, and has charged that committee with identifying, investigating, discussing, and analyzing all options related to fire services expansion and improvement to the citizens of Canton. And consolidation with the county is one of the options that will be thoroughly discussed with all parties. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Mr. Bashwood.
Excellent statements, well stated. Bottom line, when you get involved in something, you have a tendency to overrun what's going on. And in a document that you had passed out, you were saying the ambulances by the city. Ambulances, again, what the city is not responsible for ambulances, and it's no guarantee that any station in the city would have ambulances. The other thing that you made a statement on was the executive management of the city. Mr. Wood has no fire department experience. I think you are right on that point. But what we do have a fire chief that is the executive, just like you referred to for the county. The executive manager is Chief Packer, more than 20 years experience in the firefighting business. That's correct. So why would you put Mr. Wood into that position as part of your argument? You have a tendency to embellish and go forth with a whole bunch of stuff and miss the points, what you're trying to make. You say, I think that Scott Wood's executive management of our fire department outweighs $1 million per year in additional costs and no guarantee of ambulance service to the city, and et cetera, et cetera. You do go on.
Okay. I believe he asked you a question if you wish to respond to that.
I don't know what the question is with all the embellishment that went on. All I want to respond to is that I think he's breaking the methods of the decorum ordinance. All council members must conduct themselves in a professional and respectful manner. A council member is not allowed to speak at a regular. As you can recognize with the mayor, all comments by the council member shall address the motion being discussed and should be directed to the mayor and not the individual council member, staff, or citizens in attendance. Personal remarks are inappropriate. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
thought you opened up with, you wanted to be able to chat with me. That's fine. I'll tell you what you should do. Why don't you go and get ex-Governor Roy Barnes and bring him in again and do something to us again.
I believe he's asked you another question
I
there,
am.
Mr.
I certainly am.
I don't know that Mr. Roy Barnes is involved in our fire services. I think he was our charter. Questions on how we can change our charter.
Mr. Rush?
Call the question.
Okay. I am going to make one comment before we actually vote on this, though. Is I am concerned that this is a resolution that is meaningless as far as any enforceability goes. Obviously, I think Mr. Cummings is correct in that, I don't think, and I would refer to our city attorney, but I don't believe that this council can tell individual elected officials what to talk about and when to talk about it. But, I think if it's an attempt just basically to make a statement there, then that's fine. But it's sort of a waste of time to me if you pass a resolution that has really no enforceability to it at all, and it seems to be counter to what elected officials are elected to do. And not to talk about something is not what elected officials generally do. They generally want to talk about things and find out input. They want input, and they don't want to stop input. They want it to be a two-way street.
Mr. Mayor.
Anyway, I believe we've called a question.
May I ask Mr. Dyer a question?
Yes.
Mr. Dyer, if a if someone says we call the question, isn't that mean there'd be no further discussion? Is that my understanding? I may be wrong, that's why I'm asking the
We
question.
don't actually, in our process, have a call to question. It's the motion to end.
Okay, I just want to be clear.
Then,
And
Mr. Mayor?
the only thing I'd like to say on this, Mr. Mayor, is that the resolution as written does not preclude any discussion with the county. It simply says that a detailed proposal, and in some cases, it may be that the detailed proposal is already here, I don't know. But I'm just saying it doesn't preclude discussion with the county, in my opinion.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Okay, yours. I believe we ended that discussion.
No, we didn't, because
We
you,
did.
you,
Well, you would, go ahead, Mr. Best, well, you just talked to your heart's content. Go ahead.
the point was made that I'm not trying to silence anybody, but when we have a discussion here, or do research, do your research. I don't have a problem with that. But when you invite individuals to come in and get involved into our council meetings, I do have a problem with it. That's the point. And if you miss the point, I can't help you. But the point is, we don't need for you to be going around. You can ask all the questions you want. And I'm looking at you again, too. So just remember that. Ask your questions, do your research. I do. But by golly, let's make sure that we keep it within our family so we can have discussions without bringing in a lot of people and getting a lot of things, misinformation, confused. Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, Jack.
We did have a meeting, Mr. Cummings, and I, Mr. Huffman had a meeting of the fire service, just a small meeting this week, and we talked about several things, but certainly it did not pertain to cutting off, entertaining anything from the county or any other, us running in a different way, looking at all different areas. I just wanted to have that stated because we did meet.
I guess then, to me, it's difficult to interpret that resolution, but I guess we'll go ahead. I'm not sure what it says. If it doesn't say what I thought it said, then, we'll go ahead. Anyone else have any comments? All right, if not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no?
No?
Okay, motion fails. The next item, discussion regarding mayor and council compensation. Mr. Beard.
It's going to be a fun evening, isn't it?
You know me. It's off to a good start, I gotta say that.
On subject 9A, we just approved the new defined benefits package for the city and for the council. And if y'all recall, in that, the council has opted to no longer participate in a retirement benefit program. And in so doing, rough numbers, rough figures, we'll pass on about a $65,000 funding for the council retirement package. The proposal that I'm bringing forward with an $8,000 for council and $10,000 for the mayor will represent $42,900. And we're looking at a savings of $23,000 per year by not having this ungodly pension plan that has really cost the city and it'll continue to cost the city for some time. This way, we're going to get out from underneath it. So, in essence, we are not increasing any cost to the taxpayers by having this ordinance. Just want to make sure that we make it strong enough. It's not a resolution, it's an ordinance amendment to the section 2-23 city code. And make a motion for that. Second.
I'm not sure that we have a, there's nothing in my package, I don't think, is there? about this, so I don't think we have anything to vote on actually here. Do we have anything in our package?
I've got one in mind.
Did we have one?
An attachment? I don't believe there's an attachment.
No attachment with ours. And I wasn't sure exactly what you were gonna talk about other than mayor and council compensation. Exactly how much or anything like that. If it was the same or different?
It's the
or
same, it's the
what?
same that we had a couple of months ago. Nothing's changed. It's the same document.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I might, I'm back in, I think it was in December that I introduced the combined package of getting rid of the pension for elected officials and a salary increase. And my introduction at the time was that they were joined at the hip. And we were required to take them apart because the pension went one place and the other was an ordinance. So from my point of view, that both of these things, the compensation, which I think it was $8,000 for city council and $10,000 for the mayor, was what, in my estimation, was the package that I presented, and it got torn apart and then subsequently vetoed. And while I didn't vote no against the override on the veto, I remained silent, which is tacit agreement, but I just figured it was useless anyway. But so I support Mr. Beresford on this. I think we should increase the compensation, as Mr. Alexander pointed out. So I think it would be good for the city, and we have eliminated the pension for elected officials, and I think it's something that the council should do. And if Mr. Beresford's not going to do it, I'll put an ordinance together, ask Mr. Dyer to put an ordinance together to resurrect it for the next meeting.
The state law requires us to give some notice. We have to do a published notice before you can act, so we couldn't do it tonight regardless.
Correct.
So
And
we'll
every,
start.
and one thing that I looked back at some of this, and one of the items said it would begin at after the next general election. But
Yeah, I mean, you can't vote on an increase for yourself you can only vote on an increase for the next election. So we can do that process up to the qualifying period. After the qualifying period this year, we can't vote any increase for elected officials until the next election year. So it can only be done in an election year, I believe.
Well, no,
We
we
can
can
do
do
it
it anytime we want.
We can do it anytime we want. It
Doesn't
only
take
takes
effect
effect
until the next term.
Till the next term, right.
But during an election year, you can't do it after qualifying. for
Correct,
office.
that's,
okay. Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, actually, the rules say that you can't do it during the election, you cannot vote for it during the election season.
Qualifying to leave it.
And that is from the time of qualification until after the new members take their seats.
The end of
And
the
it
year.
can't go in, the end of the year or the end of the term. And they can't take effect until there has been an election and those members take their seat, which would mean that we could do an ordinance now. We have to advertise it 3 weeks and then vote it. And as long as that occurs before the August qualifying period, it can go into effect in January of 2014 after whoever's elected in this coming November takes their seats. While I had the floor, we did vote on this last year and it passed the first time. The mayor vetoed it and 4 members came back after careful thought about this and voted to sustain the mayor's veto. I don't see anything has changed since last November and December, but I do believe that the increase is warranted. But I would want to propose it in January of 2014 so that no member of this council, current council, will benefit from voting themselves a salary increase. In fact, I intend to introduce that in 2014, should it not pass now, unless they are re-elected in November. That would mean that none of us will benefit. If we vote it now, there are 3 members of this council, or actually 4 members, including the mayor, that would benefit from that salary increase. And to my opinion, I would prefer to wait till January 2014, and any new council members running in this November election would have no guaranteed expectation of an increase in compensation. But we would then, I will propose this in January 2014 moving forward, but then I will not be able to take benefit of that increase, so I won't be voting for myself. Thank you.
Mr. Bryant?
Let me clarify, so if you bring it up in 14, then it won't take effect for 4 years?
2 years.
So there will be people then voting for themselves a raise?
That is correct, but at the time of running for election, oh, excuse me, I guess we're,
None of these would be.
none of these, at the time we're running, at the time of November election, nobody will be running with a known expectation that it's gonna pass.
Well, I still don't know what the difference will be, because then you'll have 3 that'll be running. I mean, you're just postponing it 6 months. They'll still, no matter when you vote it in, there's gonna be 3 or 4 that will benefit from it eventually. That's correct.
That's correct, but
So what
nobody
is
on
the
this
difference?
council.
While I got the floor, I'll just say again, honestly, I don't remember why I voted to sustain the veto. I shouldn't have, but I'll never see any benefit of this, because I'm definitely not gonna run again. It's no new news. So, but it's just really a sad thing that a city in Georgia that's 41st in population pays the elected officials almost just a volunteer salary. And I'll say what I said again, $8,000 a year is the new proposed salary versus $2,100 now for a council member. For a younger family in their 20s or 30s, $8,000 a year makes a big difference. Particularly if, for example, if the wife's not working, they're trying to stay home and she wants to run for city council, $8,000 a year is huge. That could be the difference. Again, I'm the youngest one up here and I'm 54. Everybody else is retirement age. One of the reasons is it doesn't pay anything to be up here. It is a gigantic sucker of time, and it doesn't pay you anything. So I'm asking that we don't make this a political issue and get out and stir up the troops to come talk and spew all the stuff about not raising and all that stuff. That's a bunch of crap. People up here need to be paid some kind of decent, respectful compensation for what they're doing. 8,000 is not enough. But I mean, Harry's out here. What do you get? Something like 30,000 a year, Harry? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So anyway, to clarify the record, I seconded Mr. Beresford's motion, but I understand now that it's not a motion, right? Because we don't have a proper. Okay, so that's off the record. We're just having a discussion now, right?
My feelings hurt a little bit on this thing, because the council's getting a 280% increase, and they're only asking for a 233 for the mayor. I mean, that's 50%. I know you're gonna say I'm not worth it, but
Is that why you vetoed it?
the mayor, in order for the mayor to be put on the same level, it should not be 10,000, it should be $11,400.
We'll
Make
make
it
that change.
$11,400.
Mr. Mayor.
I'll just go on the record. I've got no problem with that. In fact, I think we ought to just go the same as Woodstock. I think they're 12 and 15, if I'm not mistaken, but whatever. I think the mayors should be increased.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Instead of the motion that they've made, which was to adopt it, I'll make a motion that we ask Mr. Dyer to create an ordinance for first reading, and then we'll let those who are in favor of passing the ordinance vote for it, and those that are against it, vote against it.
Mr. Mayor. If I'm not mistaken, when you first asked me, I made a statement what this is about, and you're sitting there saying you weren't aware of what I was going to bring forward because it wasn't in the document.
I didn't know exactly. Obviously, it's fairly clear, but exactly if you had changed the amounts or anything like that or whatever, I didn't know.
Well, interesting enough, Cherokee Trib did an excellent job communicating with you and me, and you had all the information. I got you in there quoted.
If you got the mayor's salary on that front page, look at it. Look at that.
Front page, how about second page?
Oh, how about the front page? I believe is where it
It's the
says.
same, it's,
What's the mayor's salary on that? What's the mayor's salary?
it is 10,000.
No, what's the mayor's salary that it says exists today?
3,500.
Yeah, see, that was wrong. It's not 3,500. So what I'm saying is,
So you obviously-
there's some errors in that, some errors in that, actually.
I'm sorry?
There's some errors in that.
Okay, so
And I'll be honest with you.
my point, sir, is that you were totally caught off guard, didn't know
That
anything about
paper
what's
came
going
out,
on.
that paper came out today, didn't it? Or was it yesterday? Wasn't it? I didn't read it till today, I can tell you that.
It always has errors in it.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I think Mr. Barris is probably correct about the errors because I read his quote, which said he calculated how much he made an hour using rough numbers. It came out to about 58 cents an hour, and I took that calculation based on the 2,100 we receive now annually, and it means that Mr. Beresford spends 3,620 hours a year, or 9.9 hours a day for 365 days a year in council business. So they must have misquoted you on that 58 cents, because it just seems inordinate that you're spending 10 hours every day on our council business.
I sure do, because I gotta keep track of you.
Mr. Mayor, can we move on?
Yeah, we're gonna move on now. We know what we're.
We're gonna start the process. We're gonna start the process every time.
It's the same, save yourself some energy. It's the same.
Okay. Discussion and action on Marietta Road Construction Management Contract. We have discussed that a few times too. That is in your package there with 3 quotes. Do I have any other
Mayor, I'd
discussion?
like
questions?
to, yes, sir, I'd like to make a motion to approve City Engineer West's recommendation on that.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Question? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Discussion of the Heritage Park Master Plan Project, that's the proposal, I believe, that we were talking about, there in Mr. Wood.
It is, and I think it was addressed in my management letter, and there's an invitation for council members to offer any suggestions to that, the scope and definition of that, offering, if you want to, and then ultimately hope this next meeting, if this is how you want to proceed, then to approve award of that plan design
Right.
to annex.
Mr. Beresford.
Appreciate you still calling on me.
I'll still call on you, reluctantly.
I know, that's okay. I would like to question, we've got a major project with a park, Etowah Park. It's underway. We're trying to keep the costs within line of what our budget is. And right now, I'd rather see any monies that we can come up with parks be utilized at the Etowah Park versus doing a study on this now. Let's get the park done, then we can go back and see what we want to do, because this way we'd have a better understanding of what both parks contribute to the overall program versus doing a study now and then sit on it for another 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Should we proceed, Mr. Mayor? Should we proceed, if there's a thing that, in there where, in the project that, city representatives, and I would request that if you decide to go forward with this as a council, that you designate certain representatives to, work with the project.
Yeah, I would do that at the time we vote next week. Probably have some staff members and ask Mr. Wood to either serve and with a council member or two, and or your designee or somebody you will have from the staff perspective. Okay, so that'll be moved on to the next meeting. Recommendation awarding parking study to Rich and Associates. I think that is also in your agenda package, and we've talked about that a couple of times. Mr. Wood discussed that, I believe, at the last meeting. It was narrowed down, I think it was narrowed down to 3 firms, and they were each interviewed, and basically myself, Mr. Wood, Ken Canton, and Stan Rogers, I believe. And I believe it's reasonably unanimous as to concurrence with Rich and Associates. 29, was it 29,000? 29,405. That's fine.
Yes, sir, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to make a motion that we go ahead and approve that, what you, your committee, and everyone's recommending.
Have a motion and a second. Any other discussion or questions?
I would like to say.
Sure.
I talked to a lot of merchants, and they feel like that's the most important thing that we can do. And I know you and I
Yes.
talked about this 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's been going on a long time. Okay.
What we need to do is have a contract on for the next meeting.
Okay, yeah, all right. Okay, we'll have a contract on for the vote at the next meeting. Yeah. But we didn't need to vote on that anyway.
I will withdraw my motion.
Okay, sorry about that. I was going right along with you. Under new motion, under new business, we have action on Stacy Bailey versus City of Canton, Canton Police Department, E. Scott Wood and Chief Robert Merchant settlement agreement. You want to make any comments about that settlement?
No, sir, not necessarily, except the attorneys have advised that it represents the best financial interest of the city to settle the case. I think I can speak for Chief Merchant and myself in saying we're not prepared to concur with the, that there has been any fault on the part of the city, but as I think was characterized by Mr. Dyer in the paper yesterday, it is a business decision.
Okay. Anyone else have any discussion or comments?
Question on that?
Yes.
Are we at the point with that now where we could make the motion and go ahead and approve that, put that behind us at this meeting?
I'd request that you do so. The whole idea was that you would approve it tonight.
So I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. All right, now, associated with that is the first reading of the ordinance on the Bailey settlement agreement, budget amendment. Require a budget amendment that is included in your agenda package. I believe the additional budget changes, is it 199, 199,000?
Mayor, yes, sir, 199.
Okay. Anyone have any discussion or comments on that? I guess we ought to get a, well, it'll just be the, well, it won't be the first reading, will it?
Yeah.
We can do that on this one. We just approved the settlement, but this is first reading here on the ordinance.
Right, I mean, I understand by approving the settlement, the
Well,
checks are going out.
I don't think there's any problem
Right.
there.
But yeah, it's just the first reading, you don't have to vote.
Yeah. Mr. Cummings.
Yeah, just a quick question. We have $199,295. Is this the total cost, or do we expect additional cost to that?
The only relatively minor cost that I would expect might be some minimal fees from Mr. Dyer's office, and I don't think those will be compared to any of this very much. I know he did spend a day in Atlanta with the mediators, but it'll be relatively minor compared to this.
This, Mr. Chairman, just so you'll know, that this amount includes projected costs from Gray Osk to finish.
Okay.
Mostly it's already been spent, but he projected a few more
Okay.
just in case.
Thank you.
So you're saying that includes the additional attorney fees?
Mr. Ingram had asked me, and I asked Mr. Gray, tell me how much more you think it's gonna cost, so we don't have to come back later and move a couple thousand more.
Right.
And he gave me that number on the assumption that this has to be approved by the judge, assuming no problems arise with that.
Okay.
It was a few $100s more.
Okay. So it's included in the 199?
It's in that 137.
Oh, okay.
Well, they're going 99 too, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments or questions? Okay. The first, announce the first reading of the ordinance from Fire Services Feasibility Study Budget Amendment. Anybody have any comments on that or questions? Mr. Cummings?
Yeah, I have several questions. And I'll just address it for the record. Mr. Woods already answered this, but I understand that this further reduces our contingency account by $15,000, which lowers the amount of contingency that we have left for the rest of the year to $55,000 and change. Mr. Rush, in this proposal, there was one of the options that they're going to look at is to identify, or is to look at a combined ad valorem property tax along with a fee-based tax to pay for fire services. Are you aware of any city in Georgia that does this currently, and if so, which city?
I think this is a budget amendment.
Well,
We already talked about this.
I haven't talked about it, and anything's open to discussion. Do you know any city, it's either it's a straight yes or no answer?
I'm going with the people that didn't know. I don't know of any city. The people said,
But to answer this study, because we're approving money, this study proposes the closing of one of our 2 fire stations, and I might ask if anybody in this council knows which one of the 2 will be closed. I can read it to you if you want. It's our understanding that this city is interested in increasing the level of service provided by the fire department through the construction, equipping, and staffing of 3 additional fire stations for a total of 4 operating stations. Now, we have 2. 3 and 2 to me is 5, so we must be closing one of the existing ones, and I just wondered which one it is.
study's not over.
Well, this is what we're telling them to do, is to do it on based on 4 stations. I would like to know.
I think our ISO study said we were going to go for 4 or 5 stations. This doesn't say we're closing any, it says we're adding stations.
No, but it says a total of 4 operating fire stations.
I'm not going to debate this.
Can we change it to 5? Or, I'm just trying to understand.
This is a budget amendment. We've already passed this. If you wanted to talk about it, you should have been here.
Mr. Mayor? Thank you.
Hey.
No, I haven't seen it before.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I haven't seen it
We'll
before.
get back to you, Mr. Bearsford.
It also says we have sufficient fire service SPLOST funds on hand that will be available, because we're allocating money. It's very important we understand. Do we have those SPLOST funds to build that first Laurel Canyon station? Or will we have them available at the time we build it?
Yes.
It's Mr.
Wood,
Wood.
I think he's asking you that. I guess. You have an answer to that question?
Yes.
You know,
The answer to that question would be that we could have, yes, sir. It would depend in large part on the design and utilization of the station. If the station was used for multiple purposes, then you could have enough funds available, yes, sir.
okay, so we'd have to use it for multiple purposes.
But there's not enough funds under the SPLOST for fire. Okay.
Thank you. Have we, it also says in here that we've identified additional revenue to fund the operation of these stations on a continuous basis. Is that correct?
Well, they've been identified, they've just not been adopted and appropriated.
Okay, so we know what the additional funds will be, because they're saying we need it. The study requires EPG to meet with elected officials. Mr. Mayor, I request that the budget amendment passes, that you designate those officials to be the entire council, to go along with Mr. Rush's desire to have no political influence, then the entire council can be involved, and that the council members, that all council members be included in any meetings with the vendor. Then on the total amount of $15,000, does that include the reimbursable expenses, or would we have to allocate additional money? So we don't know if we have to come up with additional money for what they call reimbursable expenses. So it's possible that it could exceed 15,000. Because I think in their project, they don't state it. And I don't know that it's a significant amount of money, but their reimbursable expenses probably would be around $1,000 if it's additional, because it's mileage expense. Okay, that was all my questions. Thank you. Mr. Bear.
Thank you. I hate to say it, but Mr. Cummings brought up an interesting point. 4 stations. If I recall correctly, the proposal that the county brought forward was 4 stations. Is that correct?
Mr. Beresford, that's correct, but this one
Thank
has
you.
3 new stations.
I just asked, yes or no, it was correct. So your point of 4 stations has what to do with 4 stations? What are you doing? All you do is delay things to get done. And you know, I appreciate all your digging and scratching and calculating and everything else, but this, as Mr. Rush said, is a budgetary issue, so I call the question. Can't?
Yeah, we're not voting on it
We're
anyway.
not voting on it anyway.
Yeah,
At this point.
gives you another time to come back and grandstand again.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor, I'd appreciate if you would ask Mr. Beresford to maintain the decorum that he proposed and we passed, and quit making personal and inappropriate remarks.
Well, I think that's always important, that we follow that decorum and that we try to maintain a tone that is not really, adverse to the person we're talking to.
And we try to keep the business moving along and everything else. So I would appreciate if we wouldn't have the litany and dialogue and lengthy points that every time that Mr. Cummings comes up with something, state the fact and move on. And it's going to be a long 6 months. And you'll be a happy camper.
All right, I will ask Mr. Wood a question about that. You said that funds had been identified. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I've made recommendations in the past relative to the millage rate, which would identify those funds, but they've never been approved or appropriated.
So if the funds have been identified, really we don't need to do this study because we know where they're coming from.
No, I don't know where they're coming from.
You identified one possibility.
Because council's not approved them, that's what I said, correct.
Okay. So then we really haven't identified funds to build the fire station.
Well, I think the question would be,
Operational
I think
cost.
the question is, have you appropriated it? And the answer to that would be no.
Okay, I thought the question was if you identified. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that the question to me is misstated, is what I'm saying.
Okay. All right, let's move along. Discussion on and action on alcohol permit fee waiver request for Canton Festival of the Arts. I think this is Canton is a co-sponsor of this event, so I think that's been what's happened in the past. So I think we probably have to act on that one tonight because of the time frame coming up.
Motion to approve?
So that we have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. Discussion of healthcare resolution for the cafeteria.
Annual pass.
Did I miss one? Oh, sorry about that, I jumped in. Recommendation for $100 annual pass at the Reservoir Launch Site.
Make that a motion.
Have a motion, to have a second.
Second.
Any questions?
I have a question. It said annual pass per person, per vehicle. So if I pull up with 10 people in a vehicle, all 10 can fish.
Right now, it's $5 a vehicle.
Okay.
It's $100 a vehicle, it's sticker on.
Okay. My second question is, how do we intend to control or monitor this, or what are we going to give them? Are we going to issue permits in our where we issue business licenses and so forth, or how do we do that?
Enforcement, I guess.
Well,
Enforce that.
Issuance, enforcements.
I doubt we've got that figured out. The county does it, we'll figure out a way that we can.
Okay, so right now we don't know. Okay, thank you.
You can speak to that.
Hey, July,
If
sure.
the council approves that recommendation, there'll be a hanging pass, just like a handicap pass, on to hang from a mirror. They'll be color coordinated and will hang from the vehicle interior mirror.
But who will actually enforce it? Police?
Police, yes.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Let's move along.
We have a
Discussion.
motion on the floor. right?
We're not doing that one this time.
Oh, I thought we,
There's always a motion made, though, right?
I made a motion that if there wasn't, can't do it, we'll withdraw it.
It'll come up next meeting.
Okay. Why not go ahead? We have a motion now and a second, right?
I see no reason.
Let's vote on it.
Well,
There's a motion and a second on the floor.
we're just sort of skipping from one to the other. I mean, you know, there's no urgency at all on this one, I don't think, is there?
Yeah, there's no,
It's not an emergency, no.
but there's no real need to have it on 2 meetings.
Let's just be done with it, so there'll be one thing we don't have to talk about 5 more times.
Well, I mean, then we ought to go back and do all of them that way, in my opinion. If we're not going to do that, I'll just go ahead and just vote on everything.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. That's a fact. There's
We got a motion and a second. Who wants to vote on it? All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Okay, opposed, no. Okay. We got $100 annual pass there. That the public didn't know we were gonna vote on tonight, but they found out. Discussion of Heritage Park stream restoration contract. Mr. Wood?
There again, I think you've got the supporting documentation in your management letter and corresponding data, so be glad to answer any questions that we need to. I've offered to have our staff take any council members down to look at that problem if they are interested in doing so. It's a $100,000 appropriation included in the stormwater budget for this current fiscal year. 3 quotes were obtained from firms that are qualified to do that type of work, as we mentioned, or should have mentioned, I don't think I did in my letter, but it necessitates the kinds of firms that have that kind of experience and that those types of experiences with EPD, EPA, Corps of Engineers, Fish and Wildlife, a lot of interfacing with those various entities. So there are 3 quotes, and the recommendation is for actually for the middle quote.
Okay.
Mr. Wood, does this mean that if we approve this, then can you get a contract for next meeting?
Yes, I believe we can, yes, sir.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
$95,000 is the recommended contractor, right?
Yes, right.
What happens if we just don't do anything, let it just continue to nature take its course in the road?
Heritage Park continues to wash down the river.
Okay. And how will this be paid for?
That's stormwater fund.
How about that, stormwater fund? Good thing we had some.
I'm surprised I hadn't already spent it all. Okay, did we have any motion on this one that we want to go ahead and vote on? Nobody wants to vote on that one? Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
We don't have a contract.
Oh, we don't have a contract.
Oh, gee, thanks. Bobby, actually, we're late getting this thing done.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
I just have one question. Was this advertised or was this just solicited?
Those were solicited, yes, sir, from firms that are qualified to do that kind of work, yes, sir.
Anything else? Okay, discussion of healthcare resolution for the cafeteria plan. Mr. Wood?
This is simply documentation that allows us to meet IRS requirements to maintain our pre-tax health insurance premiums through our payroll deduction plan. It's just basically a legal requirement.
Okay.
Been reviewed and approved by Mr. Dyer.
There being no motion, we'll move on to the, you got a question?
Just a point, we can put that on the consent agenda as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
Several of these things come in.
Anyone have any objection to that?
No, we could vote on it.
Vote on anything. Discussion of CDBG subrecipient agreements. That was attached for your information there. This, I guess, has to do with us as far as our relation with the county as far as the CDBG grant.
It assures that we will comply with U.S. Housing and Urban Development standards and requirements in the receipt and application of the CDBG funds for the Jennifer Street project.
Okay. Discussion of CDBG recommended project. Okay. You want to talk about that, or somebody else want to talk about what we're?
It doesn't matter, we sent a letter to council several weeks back inviting suggestions about potential CDBG project. Did not receive any recommendations, and Mr. West came forward with a suggestion that we present an application for CDBG assistance through the county to replace the water lines, which I understand are lead lines on Brown Street and Bobby Bishop Drive. And so, if it meets the approval of council, that will be our next CDBG application project.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
A number of these that we have pushed off to the next council meeting, can we make sure that we put that in the consent agenda?
Yeah.
Unless there's a couple there that might jump out, somebody wants to take them out, but, I mean, there's no discussion on it, we aren't going to take any action on it tonight. I'd just like to make sure that that's where it falls versus going back through all this again.
Well, it depends on, you're
Well,
talking about all these? All these?
Yeah.
Yeah, all these should be, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah, anybody have any objection to any, all of those going on now?
and even back up to the 10A and 10B. Well, 10A we already voted on, but 10B, we've got to go back through that. It's just trying to save some time here.
My guess is we may have to vote on 10B.
Yes.
Okay, he'd prefer a separate vote on that.
Whatever, I'm just trying to streamline it a little bit here.
Let's see, discussion, let's see, we have a resolution to recognize and support the Etowah River Water Trail. Was someone here to, is that, oh yeah, I didn't see you back there. Have you got that?
It's a resolution, it's been voted on.
Oh, okay, we vote on that next time then, okay. All right, is there a copy of that in there? I didn't see it.
That's today's schedule.
I saw the original, also I signed it. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
Says May 2nd.
How about, I'll just quickly read this and we'll just go ahead and take care of this, so, because this is sort of an emergency, I guess. Whereas the Etowah River flows through the city of Canton from the northwest to the southeast, and whereas the citizens of Canton value this outstanding natural resource, its clean and abundant water, the outdoor recreational opportunities afforded by the river, and protection of riverside habitat and protected watersheds. And whereas the citizens of Canton and visitors from throughout the state of Georgia and the United States have for more than 20 years regularly and openly enjoyed and exercised a rite of passage by boat on the Etowah River as it travels through Canton, thereby establishing a public easement of passage on the river. And whereas the Etowah River Water Trail is consistent with the goals and recommendations of the Cherokee County Land Conservation Steering Committee. And whereas the recent completion of the Canton boat launch, along with other official and unofficial launch sites in the county, affords citizens access to the river, with many more sites in the planning stage. And whereas the citizens of Lumpkin, Dawson, Forsyth, Cherokee, Bartow, and Floyd counties all share in this valuable resource and have provided for river access. And whereas numerous governmental and non-governmental organizations have worked throughout the years to protect and promote the Etowah River. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor and Council of the City of Canton that the public easement of passage established by more than 20 years of regular and open travel by boat on the Etowah River in Canton is hereby recognized and supported by the Mayor and Council on behalf of its citizens of the City of Canton and visitors from throughout the state of Georgia and the United States. Further, that the concept of the Etowah River Water Trail is outlined by the website www.etowahwatertrail.org. is approved and hereby incorporated by reference. The resolution will take effect immediately on its adoption, proclaimed the second day of May 2013.
Motion is out.
Have a motion, have a second. Those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All members voting for the motion.
May I ask you please to review, and Mr. Patton just pulled me aside and reminded me that in my management letter, I had noted to you that relative to the funding round, the requirement from the county, or that we have our Brown Street, Bobby Bishop Drive application submitted to the county by or before May the 10th, which will be before your next meeting. So we would ask you to authorize the mayor to sign that application form. If you give him that authorization tonight, we'll be able to go ahead and get that submitted in a timely fashion.
So moved.
Have a motion, have a second. Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. All members voting for the motion. All righty. Diane, we have a copy of that, I think. Did she get that? Yeah.
It's not.
I thought I did sign that one.
No, you signed the property.
Oh, okay. Well, I signed, I know I read all that. Okay, next item, let's see. Item L, discussion regarding the upward adjustment of water and sewer rates by 4.5% each of the next 5 years. Mr. Brian, your name was on that, did you know that?
No, sir, I did not. Where are we now?
L,
You don't have to revise.
Yeah, I saw that in the paper, right? No mistake.
yeah, I guess Susan didn't know who to put on, but that, who was going to have to handle that, about the water rates.
So we can't blame the paper on that?
No.
Let's blame
I'd
that.
say it if you want. We had a meeting of the entire council to discuss evening out the increase in water rates so that it's on an annual basis rather than periodic large increases. And the city manager and the finance CFO submitted a proposal showing that we need to smooth it out at an annual increase of 4.5%. And I guess this is just a point of saying that we concur with that approach to budgeting. I think that's all we're doing at this meeting.
I don't think it mandates anything at all. I think it just gives, for planning purposes, our financial people a little higher level of comfort that we probably want to approve that in the budget. I think that's probably what it does.
Understand.
Anyone else have any comment about that?
Mr. Mayor? Yes. The only comment I would make is that other water authorities use this practice commonly in how they approach their rates. I think Cobb does, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, those are authorities too.
Yeah, that's something.
Yeah.
And the other thing I wanted to comment on, I don't think we as a council could mandate anything that would bind other council anyway. So we can just say, yeah, we approve this method of budgeting and just go with that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. City manager's report.
Yes, sir, I was made aware of an issue that is of some timing urgency, and I'd like to ask Mr. Hatabian if he would come up and brief council. This requires a possible change order on the Harmon Field rehabilitation project, tune of about $9,000, I think, in that range. Sir? Yeah. Water sewer.
Yeah, we had a change condition out in the field. Long and short of it is we need to extend some duct work through the existing roof, cut a hole in the roof, extend the duct work up so we can install an exhaust fan. The extension wasn't included, fans included, but contractor gives me an estimate of about $8,900 to do the work. And we should be actually complete with that project, I would say, hopefully by the middle of this month. Pumps are supposed to be here the next week, and while he's there, we just want to move forward with it and get
Yeah,
authorization.
this seems to be a legitimate emergency, and so, based on the fact that it is an emergency, you have a motion to approve, have a second? Any other discussion? If not, those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. All members voted for the motion. Okay. Thanks, Dave. All righty, you have something else? Okay. I think we're not having an executive session. So.
Mr. Mayor?
Streets, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Streetscapes, Mr. Baird.
Thank you, sir. One of my favorite articles that's always in the Ledger is the soapbox. And it just so happened this past week in the soapbox, I saw an article in there that said thanks to the former Mayor Cecil Pruitt and his city council for beautification entrance island to downtown Canton. His vision of our city is still materializing because of the grants he received while in the office. And it kind of struck me like, you know, we put up the worker and the Indian and the little girl with the butterfly and the little guy with the fishing pole and had little plaques put up, and I don't recall any discussion at the council meeting or anything, but those plaques were put up because we were in office at the time. And I thought it was a pretty nice gesture. But what I'd like to do is make a proposal, and if I have to come back in 2 to 6 weeks or whatever it is, because it's a proposal here to call everybody off guard, that we would make sure that we have a plaque for that old council that brought that to us. It took a long time to get it to evolve, and I think it'd be appropriate to have that plaque down there out the entrance so that they're recognized for it. So if I can make the motion for a plaque, that recognized, I'll do that. Yeah, if it needs a second.
All right, you need a second, I'll second it for you.
Thank you.
I think this is an emergency.
Yes.
We could move to the next section.
You know, why not vote for greatness tonight?
Motion and a second.
Those in favor signify by saying aye.
All right.
Those no.
Thank you. I'll ask if Mr. Wood would,
By the way, it wasn't on an agenda anywhere, and we voted on it, so the public needs to be aware that we voted on that, something that wasn't advertised, or the public had no knowledge at all that we were even going to consider. So I do appreciate that. Yes, sir.
and let's make sure when that is publicized, that
That's right.
it was Councilman John Beresford who took the initiative to do something ungodly like that. But so be it, so spoken. Mr. Wood, would you look into that, get us some sort of nice place to fit down there and get in touch with the appropriate individuals so we can have a nice photo op for that when that takes place? I would appreciate it.
That would be great.
Thank you.
Get all the old boys back in here to get the picture.
Shake it up.
No, we all.
Yes, shake it
Are we finished with that?
Well, he said you can't speak now because it's not on the agenda.
Well, I'm gonna ask, we add something on the agenda. We all got a copy of a letter from Lynn Bowman, State Environmental Administration concerning State Highway 20 between Canton and Cummings, requesting that if we have any evaluating transportation alternatives for State Road 20 corridor between 575 and Cherokee County and 400. I don't know if we plan on doing that, but that is a major thoroughfare for our citizens here and people passing through Canton. If we are given an opportunity and don't take advantage of it, I think it would be our mistake. I guess I'd like to ask Mr. Wood, are you aware of this? Do we have, or would that go to somebody in the staff to address this, or should this be handled otherwise? Or is it something that's just a formality?
No problem. I am aware that that DOT is going to be scheduling some public hearings for the SR 20 project, and I'm also aware that I believe both Mr. Patton and Mr. West will be attending some meetings sponsored by DOT on the SR 20 project, and will be able to offer some input on behalf of city staff.
Right, and we also should definitely get our citizens involved in that, because when you get over there, we know how crowded it is. Rather than hear about the complaints after it's done, give them an opportunity.
The DOT is advertising now. I know there's a sign out on SR 20 advertising the public to attend and participate in the public hearing. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, at least one or both of the newspapers have published the dates and times for the public hearings as well.
That's not the one for the environmental impact stuff, is it, that they offered? It doesn't say anything about environmental
Yeah, it
impact.
does.
It does?
Yeah, it's from
Yeah,
the
that's
state
what that
environment.
is, yeah.
But it just says proposed project, you know, any alternatives to the State Road 20, alternatives. I don't know if that means rerouting, or is that just how you, the shoulder of the road? I don't know what all it means.
The one that I recall seeing basically wanting any input relative to any environmental impact that we may know about or find out about that. And I guess if you saw that it could be an environmental impact but need to be rerouted around something, you know, I guess, that sort of thing. That's what I thought it was about. I'm not sure it's the full public hearing on the layout of what they're going to do.
I think there were some public hearings, if I don't mean my 2 cents, and it's even before layout. I think it's a public meeting.
Right.
For what does the public want to happen on Highway 20 between 75 and 400? It's a very preliminary public hearing. Comment.
Well, with this stormwater being an issue, that the road will develop a lot of stormwater. Should that be something we look at? That's environmental.
Well, I wouldn't know exactly how to look at that.
I don't either.
You know, certainly, I think perhaps some of our staff might be participating in that some way.
Staff will participate.
Okay, good.
Staff will be able to attend DOT meetings.
Thank you.
Have a motion to adjourn? Second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
I was going to wait till you started.